I only married her out of pity. Nobody else wanted her. The words came out of his mouth with an insulting ease, as if he were talking about the weather, as if I were not sitting right next to him at that table in front of our friends. Everyone laughed. I did not say a word. I stood up slowly, left my glass of wine on the table, and walked toward the restroom. My legs were shaking, but my face was calm, serene, as if I had just heard a bad joke and not the worst humiliation of my life. I closed the restroom door, leaned against the sink, and looked at my reflection in the mirror. 31 years old, a pediatrician, Dr. Emily Miller, respected at Massachusetts General Hospital in Boston, a woman who saves lives every day, and my own husband had just destroyed mine in front of everyone. My name is Emily Miller. I am 31 years old, and this is the story that changed my life forever. Boston was always my city. I was born here. I studied here. I built my career here. The brownstones of the South End, the smell of Dunkin' coffee in the morning, the freezing winter wind coming off the Charles River, the endless traffic on Starrow Drive. That was my life before I met Tyler. Before everything turned into this, I took a deep breath, opened my purse, and took out my keychain, a small silver stethoscope my grandmother gave me when I entered medical school. I squeezed it tightly. I always did that when I needed courage. You are stronger than you think, my sweet girl. She used to tell me that, but at that moment I did not feel strong. I felt humiliated, small, invisible. Tyler and I had been married for 5 years. 5 years in which I worked 12 and 14-hour shifts in the pediatric emergency room. 5 years in which he was trying. That was what he always said. I am trying. Emily, give me time. Time for what? It was never clear. When we met, he was finishing his MBA. He never finished it. Then he said he was going to start a business. He never did. Then he said he would find a job at a serious company. The serious company never arrived, and I kept paying the rent for the apartment in the South End. I kept paying for the groceries, the electricity, the water, the gas, the Ubers, the nights out, the dinners, with our friends. Our friends. What a deceitful phrase. Because that night, in that trendy restaurant in the Seaport District, with those people I thought were my friends, I discovered I had never been part of anything. I returned to the table. Everyone was still laughing. Tyler was telling another story with that smile that used to seem charming to me and now felt fake, empty, cruel. I sat down, picked up my glass, and drank it all. Nobody noticed that I had been crying in the restroom. Or maybe they did notice and simply did not care. Tyler put his hand over mine as if it were a tender gesture, as if he had not just destroyed me. "Are you okay, honey?" he asked. I looked him in the eyes, and in that instant something broke inside me, but not out of sadness, rather out of clarity. Before we continue, if you are here, it is because you like stories where actions have real consequences. Subscribe now and hit the notification bell so you do not miss any story like this. Perfectly fine, I answered and smiled. Because in that moment, while he kept talking, while the others kept laughing, while the waiter brought another bottle of wine that I would pay for with my credit card at the end of the night, I decided something that would change everything. But it was not the time yet. Not yet. Before everything turned to ashes, there was light. There were mornings when I woke up happy, the coffee bubbling in the coffee maker, fresh bagels on the table, the feeling of building something real. That was 6 years ago. I was 25 and had just finished my pediatric residency at Massachusetts General Hospital. I was exhausted, proud, and completely in love with my profession. Every child I saved, every mother who hugged me crying with gratitude, every ER shift where I managed to stabilize a premature baby, all of that fulfilled me like nothing else could. Boston was all mine back then. I walked through Boston Common with my college friends. We ate pizza in the North End. We drank craft beers in Somerville. We got lost in the bookstores on Newbury Street. I rented a small apartment in the South End with antique hardwood floors, large windows, and a view of a tree-lined street. It was not luxurious, but it was mine. Everything I had earned myself. My family was working class. My father worked as a mechanic at an auto shop in Dorchester. My mother sold homemade pies on weekends at the Copley Square Farmers Market. They never gave me money for college, but they gave me something better, the absolute certainty that I could make it. And I did. I graduated with honors, got my position at the hospital, and started making a good salary. I was not rich, but I lived comfortably. I paid my bills, helped my parents, saved a little every month, and then I met Tyler. It was at a wedding, the wedding of a distant cousin in Newton. I did not want to go. I was coming off a 36-hour shift and only wanted to sleep, but my mother insisted. Come on, honey, you need a break. It is always work, work, work. So I went, and there he was, Tyler Hayes, tall, well-dressed, with that easy smile that made you feel like the only person in the room. We danced, we talked, he made me laugh. He asked about my job and seemed genuinely interested. He told me about his plans, finishing his MBA, opening his own consulting firm, traveling, building something big. Everything sounded so possible. We started dating. At first, everything was perfect. Dinners at trendy seafood restaurants, walks along the Charles River, movies at the AMC Theater, Sunday brunch at a popular downtown cafe. He always suggested nice places, and I always paid. It did not bother me. He was studying. I already had a steady income. It seemed fair. When I finish my MBA, everything will change, he used to say. You will see, Emily. I will give you everything you deserve. And I believed him because he was charming, because he made me feel special, because after so many years dedicated solely to my career, it was nice to feel chosen by someone. We got married 2 years later, a simple wedding at a garden venue out in Lexington. My family, his friends, a string quartet, cocktails, a buffet, pure joy. I wore a white dress I bought at a downtown boutique. It was not expensive, but I felt beautiful. Tyler cried when he saw me walk down the aisle toward him. You are the love of my life, he told me that night. And I believed him. We moved in together to my South End apartment. He had not finished his MBA yet, but he was close. I kept working at the hospital. My shifts were grueling. Pediatric emergencies, overnights, weekends, holidays. I came home with aching legs, stained scrubs, my soul tired from seeing sick kids. But Tyler was always there. He greeted me with a hug. He made me food. He asked about my day. He made me feel taken care of. For a while, that was enough. Months passed. Tyler's MBA dragged on. The professor is very demanding, he would say. I need more time for my thesis. I nodded. I understood. I kept paying the rent, the groceries, the bills. It is temporary, he told me. But temporary turned into a year. Then 2. Then 3. Tyler finally finished his MBA. There was a small ceremony. I bought flowers, took pictures, hugged him proudly. Now we are talking, honey. Now the opportunities will roll in, he said. And I believed him again, but the opportunities never arrived. Or maybe they did arrive and he just did not take them. He started sending out resumes. He said companies were not responding, that the market was tough, that he needed a connection, a real shot. Meanwhile, I kept working. Double shifts, triple shifts, 36-hour on-call rotations, emergencies that left me breathless. Early one morning, a 4-year-old boy came in with severe pneumonia. He almost did not make it. I worked on him for hours. I managed to stabilize him. When I stepped out of the room, it was 6 in the morning. My scrubs were soaked in sweat and in tears that were not mine. I got home. Tyler was sleeping. The kitchen was a mess. His breakfast dishes were still on the table. I sat on the couch, looked around the apartment, my apartment, and for the first time, I felt something strange. It was not anger, not yet. It was a question. What exactly am I building here? I squeezed the small silver stethoscope I always carried with me. You are stronger than you think, my sweet girl. But right then, I did not want to be strong. I wanted to be loved. I wanted to feel that my effort was worth it. I wanted to believe that Tyler would change. And then, he woke up. He walked out of the bedroom, hair messy, a sleepy smile on his face. Good morning, honey. How was your shift? I looked at him and decided to keep believing. Because it was easier than facing the truth. Because there was still some light, even if it was starting to fade. Have you ever trusted someone with all your heart only to discover they were never who you thought they were? The cracks do not arrive screaming. They arrive in silence. In small details you ignore because you do not want to see them. In comments that make you uncomfortable, but you justify because he did not mean any harm by it. In gestures that hurt, but you bury because it is easier to pretend everything is fine. The first crack arrived on a Wednesday. I had not slept in 2 days. I had strung shifts together at the hospital. A nasty flu outbreak had overwhelmed the pediatric ER, and we were drowning. Kids with high fevers, dehydrated babies, desperate mothers. I had worked almost 48 hours straight. When I got home, it was 9 at night. My body was destroyed. My feet, my back, my head, Everything hurt. I just wanted to shower, eat something, and sleep. I opened the apartment door. Tyler was in the living room with 3 friends. There were beer bottles on the table, snacks, loud laughter. A football game was blasting on the television. The place smelled like cigarette smoke. I stood in the doorway with my medical bag in one hand and my keys in the other. Tyler saw me and smiled. "Honey, you are home. Come say hi to the guys." The 3 men looked at me. One raised his beer toward me in a mock toast. The other 2 went back to watching the game. I just wanted them to leave, but I smiled. I waved and went straight to the bedroom. I closed the door, sat on the bed, and looked at my stained scrubs, my dirty shoes, my shaking hands, and then I heard the laughter from the living room, loud, carefree, completely oblivious. I took off my scrubs, got into the shower, and let the scalding water burn my skin. I cried a little, without really knowing why. When I stepped out, wrapped in a towel, Tyler came into the bedroom. "Hey, honey, do you have any cash? The guys and I are going to order pizzas." I looked at him. He had that smile that used to seem endearing to me and now just felt reckless. "Do you not have any?" I asked. "No, I ran out." "But you just got paid." "No, I had just gotten paid my bi-weekly salary as a pediatrician at Mass General. Money I had earned working shifts that left me gasping for air." I opened my purse, took out a $50 bill, and handed it to him. "Thanks, honey. You are the best." He gave me a quick peck on the cheek and walked out. I stood there dripping wet, exhausted, with a strange pressure in my chest. It was not anger, not yet. It was discomfort, but I pushed it down, buried it, and put on my pajamas. The cracks kept coming. A week later, Tyler asked me for money for a digital marketing certification course. $200. "It is an investment, Emily. This will open doors for me." I gave it to him. He never mentioned the course again. A month later, he needed $100 for an online diploma recognized by international companies. I gave it to him. The diploma was never mentioned again either, but the outings with his friends definitely were. The Wednesday beers, the Friday dinners, the video games until dawn on Saturdays. And I kept working, kept saving lives, kept paying for absolutely everything. The second crack was worse. It was a Saturday. I had the day off, which was rare. I decided to do something special. I deep cleaned the apartment, went to the local market, bought fresh ingredients, and slow-cooked BBQ ribs, Tyler's favorite meal. I spent the whole morning in the kitchen. I chopped onions, prepared the dry rub, let the meat cook low and slow. The apartment smelled amazing. I set the table carefully. I plated the food, warmed up the bread. Tyler got home at 3 in the afternoon. He was coming from a meeting with a potential business partner. He did not ask what I had cooked. He did not say it smelled good. He sat down, grabbed his phone, and started eating while texting. "How was the meeting?" I asked. "Fine. What did they say?" "Nothing concrete yet." He kept staring at his phone, chewing without looking at me. I ate in silence. Every bite tasted like disappointment. When he finished, he left his plate on the table and went to the living room. He turned on the TV. I cleared the table, washed the dishes, stored the leftovers, and while my hands sank into the soapy water, I felt something inside me start to fracture, but I was not ready to admit it yet. The third crack was entirely different. It happened at the hospital. I was in the break room eating a quick sandwich between consultations. My phone buzzed. It was a text from the bank. "Transaction declined. Insufficient funds." I frowned. That made no sense. I had just gotten paid. I had money in savings. I had not made any big purchases. I opened the banking app, and my stomach dropped. Someone had transferred $500 from my savings account to checking. And from there, someone had withdrawn $450 in cash. I had not made that transfer. I had not withdrawn that money, but I knew exactly who had. Tyler was the only one with access to my debit card. I had given it to him months ago when he said he needed to pay for something urgent and I was at the hospital. I never asked for it back, and now he had taken almost $500 without telling me anything. My hands were shaking. I dialed his number. It rang 3 times before he picked up. "What is up, honey?" he said with a calm voice. "Tyler, did you take money out of my account?" There was a silence. "Oh, right. I forgot to tell you. I needed to pay for a few things." "What things?" "Personal things, Emily. It is not a big deal. It is almost $500. "Yeah, I know. I will pay you back next week." "Tyler, That money was from my savings. I know, honey, but something urgent came up. Do not get mad. We will talk later. I am busy. And he hung up. I stood there in the break room with my half-eaten sandwich and my phone in my hand. And for the first time, I did not find an excuse. I did not find a justification. I only found rage. That night I got home. Tyler was watching a show in the living room eating potato chips. Hey, honey, he said, without turning around. I dropped my bag by the door. I walked over to him. I sat next to him on the couch. We need to talk, I said. About what? About the money. He sighed, paused his show, and looked at me with an expression I was starting to know all too well. The look of a scolded child. I already told you I would pay you back, Emily. It is not just that, it is that you did not tell me. You took the money without asking because I knew you would make a whole scene. A scene, Tyler. It is my money, my work, my savings. Our money, he corrected. We are married. I stared right at him. But I am the only one working. The silence that followed was heavy, uncomfortable, filled with truths neither of us wanted to say out loud. Tyler pressed his lips together. You know what, Emily? I am tired of you throwing it in my face all the time. I have not said a single thing. You do not have to. I can see it on your face, in your tone, in everything. You act like you are the victim. The victim? Yeah. Like I do not do anything. Like I am not looking. Like I am not trying. I stayed quiet because the truth was I did feel he was not trying. But I did not say it. Tyler got up from the couch. You know what? Forget it. I am leaving. I need some air. He grabbed his jacket and walked out of the apartment, leaving the door cracked open. I was left alone in the living room with the sound of the paused show still on the screen. I pulled the small silver stethoscope out of my pocket. I squeezed it tight. You are stronger than you think, my sweet girl. But that night I did not feel strong. I felt alone. And for the first time, I started to wonder if being with someone who makes you feel alone is not actually worse than truly being alone. There is a difference between not seeing and not wanting to see. I was not stupid. I was a doctor. I was trained to observe, analyze, diagnose. I knew how to read invisible symptoms, detect patterns, anticipate a crisis. But when it came to my own life, I chose blindness. Not because I was weak, but because acknowledging the truth meant making decisions I was not ready for yet. So I did what many women do when they feel everything is falling apart. I pretended nothing was wrong, and while I pretended, I started to save, to observe, to document, without him knowing. Everything changed after the night Tyler took money from my account without telling me. He came back home 3 hours later as if nothing had happened. He apologized with that tired smile he used when he knew he had crossed a line. I am sorry, honey. I am just stressed. You know I love you, right? And I nodded because it was easier. But something inside me had already shifted. That night, when Tyler fell asleep, I grabbed my phone, opened the banking app, and reviewed the transactions from the last 6 months. What I saw made my blood run cold. It was not just the $500 transfer. There was more, much more. Small withdrawals I had not noticed. $30 here, $50 there, $80 more. Transfers to accounts I did not recognize. Charges at restaurants, bars, video game stores, sports betting apps. I added it all up in my head. In 6 months, Tyler had spent over $3,000 of my money. $3,000, the equivalent of a full month of my salary. I sat on the bed with the phone in my hand, feeling the air leave my lungs. And then I did something I had never done before. I took screenshots of everything. Every transfer, every withdrawal, every charge. I saved them in a hidden folder on my phone. I named it Hospital Clinical Records. Tyler would never look in a folder with that name. From that day on, I started watching everything differently. I was no longer just his wife. I was a detective in my own home. I started noticing things I had previously ignored, like how Tyler never brought back proof of his meetings with potential partners, never mentioned names, never talked about concrete projects. When I asked, he was always vague. It is confidential, honey. You know how business works. And I no longer argued. I just nodded and mentally took note. One Friday, I decided to run an experiment. I told Tyler I had a double shift at the hospital and would not be home until Saturday afternoon. But it was not true. My shift ended at 6 in the evening. At 7, I came home quietly. I walked up the stairs slowly. I opened the door with extreme care. Tyler was in the living room, but he was not alone. There were 2 guys with him. One of them was smoking. The other had a laptop open. On the coffee table were beers, cash, and what looked like betting slips. Tyler was leaning over the laptop, staring at something on the screen with a tense expression. "Come on, man. Place the bet. They are about to close." One of the guys laughed. "If you lose again, you are screwed. Your wife is going to kill you." Tyler let out a fake laugh. "She will never find out. She works all the time. She has absolutely no clue." I closed the door slowly, walked down the stairs in silence, and went to the Starbucks on the corner. I sat by the window, ordered a coffee I did not drink, and cried. Not because I was surprised, but because I finally had confirmation of what I already knew. Tyler was not looking for a job. He was not building a future. He was gambling. Gambling my money away and lying about everything. That night I went home at 11, as if I had truly been at the hospital. Tyler was in bed scrolling on his phone. "Hey, honey, how was your shift?" "Exhausting," I said. "Very exhausting." I walked into the bathroom, locked the door, pulled out my phone, and wrote down everything I had seen in a note with the date and details. Friday, October 14th, 7:15 p.m. Tyler at home with two men gambling. He said, "She works all the time. She has absolutely no clue." I saved the note in the same hidden folder. Hospital clinical records. The following days were strange. I kept being the same Emily as always. I worked, cooked, cleaned, paid the bills, but inside I had changed. Now I saw everything with different eyes. When Tyler asked me for gas money, I gave it to him, but I took a screenshot of the transfer. When he told me he was going to a job interview, I nodded, but I checked his real-time location. Months ago, he had agreed to share his location with me so I would not worry. He never imagined I would use it for this, and I discovered that the interviews were lies. Sometimes he was at a friend's house, other times at bars. Once he was at the Encore Boston Harbor Casino. I did not say a word. I just took screenshots and kept saving everything. One day, while cleaning the bedroom, I found something under the mattress. A shoebox. I opened it. Inside were losing betting slips, bar receipts, pawn shop tickets, and a small ledger. I opened it with shaking hands. It was a handwritten record of debts with names and numbers. Tyler owed money to 5 different people, a total of $5,000. $5,000. I could not breathe. I took photos of every page, every receipt, every ticket. Then I put everything back exactly how it was and walked out of the bedroom as if nothing had happened. That night, Tyler came home late. He smelled like beer. His eyes were red. "Where were you?" I asked with a calm voice. "With a potential client. We went to grab a drink." "Oh, that is great." He smiled and kissed my forehead. "You are the best, Emily. Seriously, I do not know what I would do without you." And he went to sleep. I stayed in the living room. I pulled the small silver stethoscope from my pocket. I squeezed it tightly. "You are stronger than you think, my sweet girl." And for the first time in a long time, I started to feel that maybe my grandmother was right. Because I was no longer crying. I was no longer confused. I was documenting. I was preparing. And even though he did not know it, I had already started building the most important file of my life, the file I would one day use to win back my freedom. Weeks went by. I kept working at the hospital, kept saving lives, kept being Dr. Emily Miller. Respected, professional, dedicated. But at home, I was something else. I was a strategist. I saved every rent receipt in my name. I saved every grocery store receipt paid with my card. I saved every utility bill, electricity, water, gas, internet, everything in my name. I opened a new bank account at a different bank without Tyler knowing. I started depositing a small portion of my paycheck there. Not much, just enough to have a safety net. And I kept taking screenshots of text messages where Tyler asked for money, of transfers, of locations, of everything, because something inside me knew this was not going to end well. And when the time came, I would be ready. One night, Tyler hugged me in bed. "I love you, Emily," he said in the dark. "I love you too," I replied, but I was no longer sure it was true. Because love is not sustained by words alone. It is sustained by actions, by respect, by reciprocity. And Tyler was giving me none of that. I closed my eyes, and for the first time, I imagined a future without him. A future where I did not have to pretend. Where I did not have to keep secrets on my own phone. Where I could breathe without feeling like something was crushing my chest. And that future, as much as it scared me, was starting to feel more real than the present. The truth never arrives whole. It arrives in pieces, in fragments you have to fit together like a broken puzzle, and every piece hurts more than the last. I had been documenting in silence for 3 months. 3 months gathering evidence, taking screenshots, pretending everything was fine while I fell apart inside. But I still did not have the whole picture. I still did not know how deep the hole was until one Tuesday, something changed. I had the afternoon off that day, something incredibly rare with my hospital schedule. I decided to use the time to run errands, go to the grocery store, pay some bills, pick up the dry cleaning. When I finished, it was only 4 in the afternoon. Tyler was not expecting me home until 7. He thought I had clinic duty until 8. I walked up the stairs of the brownstone with grocery bags in my hands. I opened the door and heard voices. Tyler was in the living room talking on the phone. His voice sounded tense, almost desperate. He did not see me come in. I set the bags down quietly by the door and stood there listening. I know. I told you I would pay you this week. Silence. No, I do not have all of it right now, but I can give you half. I swear. Silence. Look, my wife gets paid on Friday. As soon as her check clears, I will transfer it to you. I promise. My blood ran cold. Yeah, she has a good job. She is a doctor. It will not be a problem. My breath caught in my throat. I am telling you. Yeah, relax. On Friday, without fail, I will send you the 100 and the other 100 the following Friday. Okay, we have a deal. He hung up. He sat on the couch with his head in his hands. I took a slow, silent step back. I stepped out of the apartment, closed the door carefully, went downstairs, and sat on the front steps of the building with my legs shaking. 100 and then another 100. $200 he had already promised from my money, without asking my permission, without telling me anything, as if I were an ATM. I pulled out my phone. My hands were shaking so much I almost dropped it. I opened my email, searched the inbox, and there it was. An email from 3 days ago I had missed because I was working back-to-back shifts. It was from the bank. Subject: Personal loan application approved. I opened the email with my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. Dear Emily Miller, your personal loan application in the amount of $5,000 has been approved. The funds will be deposited into your account on October 18th. No. I had not applied for any loan. I opened the banking app with trembling hands and there it was. A loan in my name for $5,000. Approved. Tyler had access to my online banking. I had given him the login months ago when he said he needed to verify something urgent and I was in surgery. I never asked for it back and never changed the password. And now he had taken out a loan in my name without telling me anything. I felt the world shift under my feet. I called the bank, my voice shaking. I spoke with an agent. Good afternoon. This is Dr. Emily Miller. I need information about a loan that is showing up on my account. The woman checked my details. Yes, doctor. Your loan was approved 3 days ago. The funds will be deposited tomorrow morning. Can I cancel it? Cancel it? Well, you would have to go into a branch and file a formal request. But once the money is deposited, it cannot be canceled. It can only be paid off early, but you would be responsible for the interest. I closed my eyes. And who submitted the application? The application was submitted online from your electronic banking user profile, doctor. At what time? On October 15th, at 11:47 in the morning. October 15th. That day, I was at the hospital in the OR operating on a little girl with appendicitis, and Tyler was at home taking out a loan in my name to pay his gambling debts. Thank you, I said with a broken voice, and hung up. I sat there on the front steps. I do not know for how long. People walked right past me, neighbors going up and down. Some waved at me. I just nodded. On the outside, I looked fine. On the inside, I was crumbling. I pulled the small silver stethoscope from my purse. I squeezed it so hard my palm ached. You are stronger than you think, my sweet girl. But in that moment, I did not feel strong. I felt betrayed, used, destroyed. I do not know how much time passed until I could move. I finally stood up, went upstairs, grabbed the grocery bags I had left by the door. I walked into the apartment. Tyler was in the bedroom. I could hear the shower running. I left the bags in the kitchen. I put everything away in the fridge. I walked to the bedroom. I sat on the bed and waited. Tyler walked out of the bathroom 10 minutes later, with a towel wrapped around his waist, his hair wet, whistling a song. He saw me sitting on the bed and smiled. Hey, honey. I did not hear you come in. I looked at him, and for the first time in months, I did not pretend. We need to talk, I said with a freezing voice. His smile faltered. About what? About the loan. He froze. What loan? The $5,000 loan you took out in my name without telling me. The silence that followed was deafening. Tyler ran a hand through his wet hair and looked away. Emily, I was going to tell you when the money was already deposited. It is complicated. It is not complicated, Tyler. It is theft. You took out a loan in my name without my permission. It is not theft. We are married. It is our money. I stood up from the bed and took a step toward him. It is not our money. It is my money. I work. I pay for everything. I am the one who is going to have to pay off that loan. I know, Emily. But I had an emergency. What emergency? He did not answer. What emergency, Tyler? He clenched his jaw. I have a debt. How much? 3,000. And the other 2,000? Other gambling debts. I looked him in the eye and he lowered his gaze. That was all the answer I needed. I stood in front of him feeling everything I had built over 6 years collapse. How long have you been gambling? I asked with a trembling voice. It is not what you think. How long, Tyler? 2 years. But it is not a huge deal. I have just had some bad luck lately. Bad luck. I laughed. It was a bitter, broken laugh, full of pain. You have been gambling my money away for 2 years and you call it bad luck. Emily, listen to me. No. I cut him off, my voice firm. I do not want to listen to you anymore. I do not want any more lies. They are not lies. It is just that, what? What? I did not want to worry you. I was going to fix it. Everything was going to be fine. He did not respond because he knew there was no answer that justified what he had done. I turned around and walked toward the bedroom door. Where are you going? He asked, looking worried. To sleep on the couch. Emily, do not be like that. I stopped. I turned back to look at him. Do not be like that. That is what you always say. As if I were the problem. As if I were overreacting. But you know what, Tyler? I am done pretending everything is fine. I walked out of the bedroom, closed the door, and lay down on the living room couch with the small silver stethoscope clutched in my hand, and I cried. I cried for all the lost time, for all the wasted money, for all the lies I swallowed, for the woman I was before I met him, and for the woman I had become. But in the midst of the tears, something shifted. Because I was no longer sad, I was furious. And that night I discovered that fury is much more powerful than pain. There are moments in life that change you forever. Moments that divide your existence into a before and an after. For me, that moment arrived 3 weeks after discovering the loan. 3 weeks in which Tyler and I lived like strangers under the same roof. He slept in the bedroom. I slept on the couch. We spoke the bare minimum. Good morning, good night, nothing more. I kept working, kept paying the bills, kept pretending to the world that everything was fine. But inside, I was building something. A plan. An exit strategy. And then came Saturday night. The night that changed everything. Tyler had been insisting for days that we go to a dinner with his friends. I did not want to, but he pushed so hard that I finally agreed. Please, Emily, we have not gone out in weeks. People are going to start asking questions. He always cared more about what people thought than how I felt, but I agreed to go. Not because I wanted to, but because something inside me told me I needed to be there. The dinner was at a restaurant in the Seaport District, a gorgeous place with warm lighting, soft music, wooden tables, the kind of place I never would have gone to on my own because it was way too expensive. But Tyler insisted. It is important, honey. I need to make a good impression on these guys. We arrived at 8. There were already 4 people at the table. 2 couples, Brad and Sophie. He worked in advertising. She was an influencer. And Mike and Danielle. He owned a travel agency. She did not work. They all smiled when we arrived. Hugs, kisses on the cheek, comments about how great we looked. I smiled, said hello, sat down, and from the very first moment I knew something was wrong. The dinner started normally. They ordered wine, made toasts, talked about superficial things, the traffic, the weather, a show they were watching on Netflix. I barely spoke. I just listened, observed. Tyler was nervous. You could tell by how he played with his glass, how he constantly changed the subject, how he avoided my eyes. After the second glass of wine, Brad leaned forward and said, "So, Tyler, when are you finally going to tell us about this business you keep talking about?" Tyler let out a forced laugh. Soon, soon. I am just ironing out a few details. Mike laughed. Details? It is always details with you, man. There were uncomfortable chuckles around the table. I did not laugh. Sophie looked at me and smiled. And you, Emily, how do you put up with this guy? It must be exhausting being married to a dreamer. He is not a dreamer, I replied with a calm voice. He is a gambler. Silence fell over the table like a brick. Tyler shot me a furious glare. Emily, but I did not stop. He has been betting at casinos, on sports apps, for 2 years, and losing. Sophie set her glass down. Mike and Brad exchanged looks. Danielle stared down at her plate. Tyler half stood up. That is enough, Emily. Enough. Of what? Of telling the truth. You are drunk. I have not had a single drink. And it was true. My glass was still full. Brad cleared his throat. Well, I think this is something you guys should discuss in private. There is nothing to discuss, I said firmly. Everyone here knows the truth. You just do not want to say it out loud. Tyler clenched his fists. We are leaving right now. But I did not move. And then it happened. Mike, who had been quiet until then, let out an awkward laugh. Look, Emily, we all know Tyler has his things, but that does not mean you have to humiliate him in public. I stared at him. Humiliate him? Yeah, look at him, poor guy. He is trying. He has bad luck, but he is trying. Trying what? To ruin my life. Mike sighed. Jesus, Emily, do not be so dramatic. And then Brad spoke with that condescending tone some men use when they think they are being the reasonable ones. Look, we get that you are upset, but Tyler is our friend, and honestly, we all think you are a little controlling. I froze. Controlling. Yeah, always working, always tired, always in a bad mood. Poor Tyler does not even have room to breathe. Sophie nodded. It is true, Emily, no offense, but sometimes it seems like you are the one wearing the pants in the relationship. And then Tyler spoke with that voice I knew all too well. The voice he used when he wanted to look good, when he wanted everyone to see him as the victim. You guys do not know what it is like living with her. I felt the air leave my lungs. It is exhausting. Always work, work, work. She never has time for me. She never wants to go out. She never wants to do anything fun. Brad nodded sympathetically. I feel you, man. And then Tyler said the words that changed everything. I only married her out of pity. Nobody else wanted her. The world stopped. All the noise in the restaurant vanished. Only those words remained. I only married her out of pity. Nobody else wanted her. And everyone laughed. Sophie, Mike, Brad, Danielle, all of them. I sat completely still, feeling something inside me shatter into 1,000 pieces. Tyler kept talking, fueled by their laughter. Seriously. I met her at that wedding and she was completely alone. Nobody was talking to her. I felt bad. I figured, well, someone has to do her a favor. More laughter. And then it turned out she was a doctor. I thought, not bad. At least she has money. Mike patted him on the back. You are a genius, man. And they kept laughing, all of them except Danielle, who was looking at me with something resembling pity in her eyes. I did not cry. I did not yell. I did not say a word. I just stood up slowly, with dignity. I grabbed my purse and walked toward the restroom. I locked myself in a stall, sat on the toilet lid, and took a breath. 1, 2, 3 times. I pulled the small silver stethoscope from my purse. I squeezed it until it hurt. You are stronger than you think, my sweet girl. And in that moment, something inside me changed. It was not sadness. It was not pain. It was absolute clarity. I walked out of the restroom 5 minutes later. I returned to the table with my back straight, my head held high, my heart pounding in my chest. They were all still laughing, still drinking their wine, making their jokes, their cruel comments. Tyler saw me approaching and smiled. There she is. The drama is over. I reached the table. I did not sit down. I opened my purse and pulled something out, a manila envelope. I dropped it right in the middle of the table. The sound was sharp, final. Everyone went dead silent. Tyler stared at the envelope, frowning. What is this? Open it, I said with an icy voice. Emily, do not start. Open it. There was something in my tone that forced him to obey. He opened the envelope and pulled out the contents. They were papers. A lot of papers. Rent receipts. All in my name. Bills for electricity, water, gas, and internet, all paid by me. Bank statements showing all the transfers he had made without my permission. Screenshots of texts where he asked me for money, photos of the betting slips I found under the mattress, photos of the ledger with his debts, the paperwork for the $5,000 loan taken out in my name without my permission. Everything. Absolutely everything. Tyler turned pale. The others stared at the papers with wide eyes. I leaned over the table and looked Tyler straight in the eyes. "I only married you out of pity," I said with a perfectly calm voice. "Nobody else wanted you." The silence was absolute. "And tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock, we are going to sign the divorce papers, you and me, at my lawyer's office." I pulled another piece of paper from my purse, a legal summons. I placed it in front of him. "And you better show up, because if you do not, I will proceed with an at-fault divorce for financial abandonment and you will lose absolutely everything." Tyler could not speak. His face was white. His hands were shaking. I stood up straight, looked at the rest of them. "Have a lovely evening." And I turned around. I walked toward the restaurant exit with my head high, without looking back, without crying, without shaking, because finally, after so many years of pretending, of enduring, of swallowing my pain, I was finally free. I stepped out onto the street. The freezing Boston air hit my face. I took a deep breath, pulled out my phone, and requested an Uber. And while I waited, I looked up at the night sky. The city lights glowed against the clouds, and for the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe. The longest night of my life was not the dinner, it was what came after. I got home in an Uber, walked up the stairs of the brownstone, feeling like my body weighed 1,000 pounds. I opened the apartment door. I stood in the entryway, looking at the space that had been my home for 5 years, and it no longer felt like my home. It felt like a prison that I had finally found the key for. I took off my shoes, left my purse on the table, went to the bedroom, and started packing. I pulled a suitcase from the closet, the biggest one I owned, and began filling it with my clothes, my shoes, my personal belongings. Not everything, just the essentials. My medical scrubs, my comfortable hospital shoes, the clothes I actually wore, photos of my family, my grandmother's small silver stethoscope. The rest could stay. Tyler could keep everything, because nothing in that apartment was worth more than my peace of mind. It was 11 at night when I finished packing. I zipped the suitcase, left it by the door, and sat on the couch to wait, because I knew he would come back, and I knew it would not be easy. Tyler arrived at 1 in the morning. He burst into the apartment like a hurricane, slamming the door, throwing his keys onto the table so hard they bounced off and hit the floor. "What the hell was that, Emily?" His voice was a scream full of rage, humiliation, impotence. I remained seated on the couch, perfectly calm, with my hands in my lap. "It was the truth," I answered quietly. "The truth. You made me look like an idiot in front of my friends. You made yourself look like an idiot. I just showed the evidence." He stormed toward me, furious. "You had no right to do that. You had no right to humiliate me like that." I stood up from the couch and looked him right in the eyes. "I had no right. And you had the right to say you married me out of pity, to say nobody else wanted me, to laugh at me in front of everyone. I was joking. It was not a joke, Tyler. It was cruelty. It was pure humiliation. You are overreacting. I am not overreacting." My voice rose for the first time, and something inside me snapped. All the emotions I had been holding back for months unleashed like an avalanche. "I have put up with your lies for years. I have paid for everything while you pretended to look for a job. I have spent years feeling worthless because you made me feel that way. I never made you feel that way. Yes, you did. Every single time you used my money without asking. Every time you lied about where you were. Every time you made me feel like I was the problem. Every time you ignored me. Every time you made me feel I should be grateful that someone like you put up with me." Tyler clenched his fists, his face red, his eyes gleaming with rage. "And now what? You are going to leave me? I already left you at the restaurant, in front of everyone, just like you left me. You cannot do this. I already did. We are married, Emily, and tomorrow we begin the divorce process." He stood in front of me, breathing heavily, and then he changed his strategy. His face softened, his shoulders slumped, and his voice dropped low, almost pleading. "Emily, please, do not do this." I recognized that voice. It was the voice he used to manipulate me, the voice of vulnerable Tyler, the Tyler who just needed one more chance. The Tyler who this time was truly going to change. I love you, he said, his voice cracking. I know I messed up. I know I said horrible things. But I was drunk. I was nervous. I did not mean it. Yes, you did. No, Emily, I swear. I love you. You are the love of my life. He took a step toward me. He tried to grab my hands. I pulled them away. If you truly loved me, you would not have done any of this. Everyone makes mistakes. This was not a mistake, Tyler. This was a pattern for years, and I was foolish enough to ignore it. You are not a fool. Yes, I was. I was a fool for believing you would change, for believing your promises were real, for believing that someday you would value me. I turned around and walked toward the door where my suitcase was. But I am not a fool anymore. Tyler followed me. Where are you going? To my parents' house. And what about me? What am I going to do? I looked at him over my shoulder. I do not know, and honestly, it is not my problem anymore. But Tyler was not going to let me go that easily. He planted himself in front of the door, blocking my way. You are not leaving. Move. No, Tyler, get out of the way. No. You are not going to ruin my life like this. I am not ruining your life. You ruined it all by yourself. If you leave, everyone is going to think I am a total failure. And there it was. The absolute truth. He did not care about losing me. He cared about losing his image. He cared about what people would think. He cared about being seen as the guy who got dumped. But me, as a person, as a wife, as the woman who had held him up for years, I never mattered to him. Let me pass, I said firmly. No, let me pass or I am calling the police. He laughed. A bitter, contemptuous laugh. Go ahead. Call them. And when they get here, I will tell them you threatened me, that you attacked me, that you are the crazy one. I froze, because in that instant I saw who he really was. Not the charming man I met at that wedding, not the husband who held me at night, not the victim he pretended to be in front of his friends. He was a manipulator, a liar, a man willing to destroy me to save his own ego. I pulled out my phone, opened the voice recorder app, and hit record. Tyler, I said in a clear voice, are you threatening me? I am not threatening you. I am telling you the truth. You are telling me that if I call the police, you are going to lie about me. It is not lying. It is. He stopped, and finally realized what I was doing. He looked at me, his eyes full of pure hatred. You have always been a calculating bitch, I replied with total calm. I have always been a smart woman. It just took me a long time to realize it. And then I did something I never thought I would do. I screamed, help, help. Tyler's face went completely pale. What are you doing? Help, please. The neighbor's doors started opening. Mr. Henderson, the man from the apartment next door, stepped out into the hallway. What is going on, doctor? He is holding me against my will, I said with a shaking voice. He will not let me leave. Mr. Henderson looked at me, then looked at Tyler with a disapproving scowl. Young man, let her pass. Tyler clenched his jaw, but he finally stepped aside. I grabbed my suitcase and walked out the door. Mr. Henderson walked me to the stairs. Are you all right, doctor? Yes, thank you, Mr. Henderson. Do you want me to call anyone? No, I already called my dad. He is on his way. It was a lie. I had not called anyone, but I walked down the stairs, stepped out onto the street, and requested another Uber. While I waited, I looked up. Tyler was at the apartment window, staring down at me, arms crossed, face full of hate, and I felt nothing anymore. No love, no pity, no guilt, just sheer relief. The Uber arrived 10 minutes later. I loaded my suitcase. Where to? The driver asked. To Dorchester, to my parents' house. During the entire ride, I did not cry. I just looked out the window watching the streets of Boston roll by. The same streets where I had built my life. The same streets where I had lost so much. And the same streets where I was now going to rebuild myself. I arrived at my parents' house at 2 a.m. I knocked on the door. My mother opened it in her pajamas, eyes heavy with sleep. Sweetie, what happened? And there I finally broke down. She hugged me and I cried. I cried for everything I had lost, for all the wasted years, for the woman I was, and for the woman I would never be again. But I also cried out of sheer relief, because finally, after so much time, I was free. The following days were strange. I stayed at my parents' house, in my childhood bedroom, with the same walls, the same curtains, the same memories of when life was simpler. My mother brought me tea. My father did not ask questions. He just hugged me and said, "You are safe here, my girl." But I did not sit still, because the pain could wait. Justice could not. Monday at 9 in the morning, I called Amanda Clark, a divorce attorney a colleague at the hospital had recommended months ago. "Dr. Miller, how can I help you? I need to file for divorce immediately. Do you have documentation?" "I have everything." That same afternoon, I went to her office on State Street. I arrived with a binder full of evidence: payment receipts, bank statements, screenshots, photos of his debts, the fraudulent loan paperwork, the recording of the night Tyler threatened me. Everything. Miss Clark reviewed every document, and her expression grew more surprised with every single page. "Doctor, this case is solid, rock solid. How long will it take? With this documentation, we can file for an at-fault divorce citing financial infidelity, threats, and misuse of marital assets. If he does not contest it, it could be finalized in 3 months. If he fights it, 6 months maximum. I want to move forward. Are you sure? Once we start, there is no turning back." I pulled the small silver stethoscope from my purse. I squeezed it tightly. I have never been so sure of anything in my entire life. Tyler was served the divorce papers on Wednesday. My lawyer told me he signed the acknowledgement, but that he did not look happy. I do not care how he looks. "Doctor, be prepared. He is going to try to fight it. Men like him always do." And she was right. Tyler started calling me 10 times a day. 20, 30. I did not answer. He started sending me texts. "Emily, please, let us talk. This is a mistake. I love you. We cannot end like this. My friends are turning their backs on me. Everyone thinks I am a monster. This is your fault. If you do not stop this, you are going to regret it." I saved every text, took screenshots, and forwarded them to my lawyer. "Perfect," she said. "This is harassment. We will use it." But Tyler did not just stop at contacting me. He started calling my parents, my mother. "Ma'am, please, talk to Emily. This is all a huge misunderstanding." My mother hung up on him. He tried contacting my colleagues at the hospital, my friends. One of them, Jessica, called me, feeling very worried. "Emily, Tyler just texted me saying you are sick, that you are having a nervous breakdown, that you need psychiatric help." I took a deep breath. "I am not sick, Jessica. I am divorcing a manipulator. I understand. I just wanted you to know. If you need anything, I am right here." That phone call made me realize something. Tyler was not going to stop. He was going to try to destroy my reputation. So I did the only thing I could do. I got ahead of it. That night, I wrote a long, honest, and direct message. I sent it to my close circle of friends, trusted colleagues at Mass General, and my extended family. It said, "Family and friends, I want you to hear this from me before you hear rumors. Tyler and I are getting a divorce. The decision is final and non-negotiable. For years, I financially supported our marriage while he gambled, lied, and racked up debts in my name. He took out a $5,000 loan in my name without my consent. I have saved all the evidence. I am not looking for pity, only peace and justice. I ask that you respect my privacy at this time. And if Tyler contacts you with stories about my mental health or my character, please know that it is a lie. Thank you for your support, Emily." I hit send and waited. The replies started coming in within minutes. "We support you, cousin. You are so brave, Emily. I always knew something was off. I am here for whatever you need. That bastard does not deserve your time," I cried. But this time not out of sadness, but out of absolute gratitude, because I was not alone. Meanwhile, Tyler's world started to crumble. His friends, the same ones who laughed that night at the restaurant, began to pull away. Brad stopped talking to him. Mike blocked him on text. Sophie posted on her Instagram stories, "Surround yourself with people who lift you up, not those who drain you," with a picture of a sunset, obviously. And Danielle, the only one who had looked at me with something resembling pity that night, sent me a private message. "Emily, we do not know each other well, but I want you to know that what Tyler did was horrible." I stayed silent. "I am so incredibly sorry. I wish I had your courage someday," I replied. "It is never too late to find it." 2 weeks later, I received another call from Miss Clark. "Doctor, I have news." "Tell me." "Tyler has agreed to an uncontested divorce. He signed everything." I sat in silence. Everything. Everything. He waives any right to your assets. He accepts the grounds for divorce. He is not asking for alimony. He is not asking for anything. He just wants this to end quickly. Why? Because we showed him all the evidence. We explained that if we went to trial, not only would he lose, but we could file criminal charges for the fraudulent loan. He got scared. I closed my eyes. When can I sign? Next Friday at 10 in the morning. I will be there. That Friday, I arrived at the courthouse with my mother. Tyler was already there, completely alone, without his friends, without his smile, without his arrogance. He looked smaller, older, thoroughly defeated. He saw me walk in. He tried to smile. Emily. I did not respond. We walked into the courtroom. We signed the papers. The judge officially declared our marriage dissolved, and I walked out of there a single woman, free, reborn. Outside the courthouse, my mother hugged me. I am so proud of you, sweetie. Thank you, Mom. How do you feel? I looked up at the sky. It was a sunny day in Boston. The air felt crisp and clean. I feel light, I said, as if I had been carrying a massive boulder for years and I finally dropped it. I pulled the small silver stethoscope out of my purse. I watched it shine in the sun. You are stronger than you think, my sweet girl. My grandmother was always right. Karma does not arrive with fireworks. It arrives in silence, like a shadow that follows you until it catches up. And Tyler learned that the hard way. 3 months passed after the divorce. I had returned to my life, my apartment, my job at the hospital, but now everything was different. My apartment in the South End was solely mine. I changed the locks, painted the walls, bought plants, and opened the windows and let the sun pour in. And for the first time in years, I felt true peace. At the hospital, my colleagues treated me with renewed respect, not out of pity, but out of admiration. Dr. Miller, you are an absolute inspiration, a young resident told me. You show us that we can be strong even when everything falls apart. I smiled. It is not about being strong. It is about knowing when to stop carrying weight that does not belong to you. But Tyler was not so lucky. The news reached me in pieces, through comments, texts from friends, random encounters in the city, and every piece of news confirmed something my grandmother always used to say. A crooked path always ends in a crooked destination. First, he lost his social circle. Brad, Mike, Sophie, they all distanced themselves, not because I asked them to, but because they started seeing who he really was. One day, Jessica told me that Tyler had borrowed money from Brad, $500, and never paid him back. Brad started asking around and found out that Tyler owed money to other people, that his business meetings were gambling sessions, that his opportunities were total lies. The bastard used me, Brad told Jessica, and on top of that we defended him. The friend group dissolved, and Tyler was left completely alone. Second, the debts caught up with him. The people he owed started collecting with interest, with actual threats. One day, I saw a post on a South End neighborhood Facebook group. Does anyone know where Tyler Hayes lives? He has an outstanding debt. Another neighbor replied. He moved out a month ago, left no forwarding address. Tyler had to leave the apartment I used to pay for. He moved into a rented room in a much worse neighborhood. No furniture, nothing, and every month the debts kept growing. Third, his reputation was destroyed. In Boston, especially in certain professional circles, everybody knows everybody. Word gets around, and the story of what happened that night at the restaurant in the Seaport spread like wildfire. Did you hear about Tyler Hayes? Yeah, the guy who married the doctor for her money, then humiliated her in public, and she dropped the receipts right on the table. What a total disgrace. Tyler tried to find work, but every time someone Googled his name, comments, gossip, and stories popped up. Nobody wanted to hire him. Nobody wanted to be associated with him. He had become an example. A warning. Do not be a Tyler. Fourth, his family found out. 3 months after the divorce, Tyler's mother tracked me down. She went to the hospital and asked for me at the front desk. When they told me, I hesitated, but I ultimately agreed to see her. We sat down in the hospital cafeteria. She ordered a coffee. I just drank water. Doctor, Emily, she started, her voice shaking. I do not even know what to say. You do not have to say anything, ma'am. Yes, I have to, because I found out about everything. The gambling, the debts, how he treated you. She had tears in her eyes. I raised him better. Or at least I thought I did. Ma'am, with all due respect, Tyler is an adult. His choices are not your responsibility, but I feel like I failed you. That we brought you into our family and we did not protect you. I shook my head. You never hurt me. Your son did, and he is the only one responsible. She nodded, wiping her tears. Can I ask you something? Of course. Do you think he can change? I thought about it for a second. I think people can change, but only if they truly want to, and only if they face the consequences of their actions. And do you think he is facing them? Yes, I answered softly. I think he finally is. She nodded, stood up. Thank you for seeing me, and please forgive me on behalf of my family. There is nothing to forgive, ma'am. Take care. She left, and I stayed there with my glass of water, feeling something very strange. It was not satisfaction at his suffering. It was closure. Fifth, he lost his final opportunity. 2 months later, I found out through Danielle, yes, from the restaurant, that Tyler had found a job, a real job, at a logistics company as an administrative assistant. It was not much, but it was something. I thought you would want to know, Danielle texted me. Maybe he is trying to turn things around. I just replied, let us hope so. But 2 weeks later, Danielle texted me again. He got fired. Why? He no-showed 3 days in a row without calling in. And when he came back, he smelled like alcohol. They gave him a second chance. He did not show up again. I closed my eyes, because right there was the brutal truth. Tyler had not changed, not because he could not, but because he did not want to. Sixth, the ultimate karma. 2 weeks ago, I ran into him. It was in downtown Boston. I was walking down Boylston Street after buying some books. And there he was, sitting on a bench in wrinkled clothes, an unkempt beard, a completely empty look in his eyes. He looked broken. Our eyes locked. He looked down at the ground, and I kept walking. I felt no pity. I felt no anger. I felt nothing, because Tyler was no longer a part of my life. He was just a reminder of the woman I used to be and the woman I will never be again. That night I got back to my apartment, brewed some chamomile tea, and sat by the window looking at the city lights. I pulled the small silver stethoscope from my purse. I placed it on the table. You are stronger than you think, my sweet girl. My grandmother was right, but now I truly knew it. I did not just believe it anymore. I knew it. Tyler's karma was not that I destroyed him, it was that he destroyed himself. He lost his friends because he used them. He lost his home because he never valued it. He lost his reputation because he stained it with his own actions. He lost opportunities because he never took them seriously. And in the end, he lost his dignity, not out of revenge, but through natural consequences, because life has a way of balancing the scales. Not always fast, not always in obvious ways, but always with justice. A year after the divorce, my life was completely different, not because I had changed cities or jobs, but because I had changed. I was still Dr. Emily Miller, still working at Massachusetts General Hospital. I was still saving lives, still loving my profession. But now, when I came home after a long shift, I did not feel that crushing weight on my chest. There was nobody waiting to ask me for money, nobody minimizing my exhaustion, nobody making me feel like my best effort was never enough. There was only peace. I completely redecorated my apartment. Nothing remained from that era. Not the furniture, not the colors, not the energy. Now the walls were crisp white, with hints of mint green. There were plants in every corner, new books on the shelves, a hanging chair by the window where I sat to read on Sundays, and on the living room wall I hung a framed print with a quote I found that reminded me of who I was now. The peace I have today is worth more than any blood tie. My relationship with my parents grew stronger. Every Sunday, I went to their house in Dorchester for dinner. My mother made her famous pot roast. My father asked about the hospital, and I told them my stories. You look different, honey, my mother told me one Sunday. Different how? Like you are lighter. Like you were carrying a sack of rocks and you finally put it down. I smiled. That is exactly how I feel, Mom. My father took my hand. We always knew you were strong, but now you know it too. And he was right. At work, I got promoted. They named me the head of the pediatric emergency department. Not because they felt sorry for me, but because I earned it. Because I had proven, not just in my personal life but in my profession, that I was capable of facing a crisis and coming out stronger. The day they gave me the news, the hospital director called me into her office. Dr. Miller, this promotion is a recognition of your dedication, your professionalism, and your leadership. Thank you, Doctor. And she added with a soft smile, it is a reminder that women who hold themselves up, Fly higher. I walked out of that office with tears in my eyes, but they were tears of pride. I also started going out again. Not with men. I was not ready for that yet, but with friends. With Jessica, my colleague from the hospital, we tried out new coffee shops on Saturday afternoons. With my cousins, we went for walks along the Charles River. With Danielle, yes, from the restaurant, who became an unexpected friend, we went to the movies. I laughed more in those few months than I had in the last 5 years, and I realized something deeply important. I did not need a man to be happy. I needed to be good with myself. And finally, I was. One day, 6 months after the divorce, one of my patients, a 7-year-old girl with pneumonia, handed me a drawing. It was a picture of me in a white coat, a stethoscope around my neck, and a huge smile. Underneath it read, "Thank you for saving me, doctor. You are my hero." I broke down, because for so long I had been so busy trying to save my marriage that I forgot my real purpose was saving lives. I taped that drawing to the wall in my office, and every time I look at it, it reminds me why it was all worth it. 3 months ago, I did something I never thought I would do. I started therapy, not because I was broken, but because I wanted to understand. To understand why I stayed so long, to understand why I ignored the red flags, to understand how to avoid repeating the same exact patterns. My therapist, Dr. Evans, helped me see things I could not see on my own. Emily, you were not stupid, you were loyal. And loyalty is not a bad thing. It only becomes bad when that loyalty turns into self-destruction. And how do you tell the difference? When you start losing pieces of yourself to keep another person afloat, that is the difference. And right there, I understood everything. My grandmother's small silver stethoscope is still with me. Now I carry it in the pocket of my white coat every single day. It is no longer just an object. It is a reminder of where I come from, of what I survived, and of the woman I became. 2 weeks ago, I was at the hospital in the doctor's break room grabbing a quick coffee between patients. A young resident sat down next to me. "Dr. Miller, can I ask you something?" "Of course. How are you so incredibly strong?" I looked at her. She had tears in her eyes. "What is wrong? My boyfriend makes me feel like I am never enough, that I work too much, that I do not have time for him, and I feel like I am losing pieces of myself." A knot formed in my throat because I knew that exact feeling all too well. "Does he work?" I asked. "No, he is trying to find his path. Do you support him financially?" She looked down. "Yes. And does he value your effort?" "He says he does, but you do not feel it." She nodded. I took her hand. "Listen to me very closely. You are not responsible for saving anyone. Your only responsibility is yourself. And if someone makes you feel small, it is not because you are small. It is because they need you to feel that way so they can feel big," she cried. "But I love him. I loved him too, and it almost destroyed me. Because love is not enough if it does not come with respect, with reciprocity, with genuine value. And how did you know when to walk away?" I smiled with a touch of sadness. When I finally understood that being with someone who made me feel completely alone was worse than actually being alone. The resident left that afternoon. I do not know if she took my advice. I do not know if she stayed or if she left. But I know I planted a seed, and sometimes that is enough. Today is a sunny Saturday in Boston. I am in my apartment with the windows open, soft music playing, a book in my hands, and I feel whole, not because I have everything, but because I finally have myself. Sometimes I think about Tyler. Not with anger. Not with sadness. Just with absolute nothingness. Because he is no longer part of my story. He is just a lesson. A painful lesson. Yes, but a necessary one, because he taught me something no class, no book, no lecture could have ever taught me. My silence almost destroyed me, but my truth saved me. I no longer shrink myself, so others can feel huge. I no longer ignore red flags hoping they turn green. I no longer apologize for being successful, for being smart, for being strong. Because I learned that the peace I have today is worth more than any blood tie, that sometimes losing a family means gaining a life, and that the most powerful woman is not the one who never falls. She is the one who falls, gets up, dusts herself off, and keeps walking with her head held high. I pulled the small silver stethoscope from my pocket. I watched it shine in the sunlight streaming through the window. "You are stronger than you think, my sweet girl." I smiled. "I know, Grandma. Now I know." My silence almost destroyed me. My truth saved me. I no longer shrink myself so others can feel huge. The peace I have today is worth more than any blood tie. If this story resonated with you, hit the like button, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. We have all been in places where we were not valued. Leave me a comment below. Have you ever been undervalued at a job or in a relationship? What happened next? Your story matters too.